Good afternoon, Saints. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Um, is again me, Sir Brandon Florima. I come to you this afternoon with another video. As I promised, we be talking about several issues every Sabbath. Today is the Holy Sabbath. We would discuss what is the Sabbath. But today, I was so happy, exciting. I worship today one of my best church. I worship at East New York Seventh Day Adventist Church, East New York. The saints were very happy to see me. They were very excited to see the former pastor. I felt like Paul visiting one of his churches in Asia Minor. I had communion. We had communion together. They have a pastor there, and some of the young people, the brethren that I saw this morning, we had a great time. Now, many of you have been calling and sent questions. I'm going to answer all of your biblical questions time to time. I'm don't say I know everything. Or I'm not the all-knowing. I'm not God, but I will do my best to answer as much as I can. One of the questions that some of you said that trouble you is what is the difference between Catholicism and Protestantism? What is the difference between Catholics and Protestants? For me to answer this question, I must say I believe, and that's my belief. It doesn't have to be a belief. One of the major difference between Roman Catholics and Protestant is the place given the Bible. Although Roman Catholics believe that the Holy Scripture are inspired, inspired of God. They also believe that along with the Bible, I'm talking about the Roman Catholicism, they also believe in tradition of the church through history, brought about by church council, is to be given weight in matters of faith and doctrines. Again, this is where the Catholics stand. Believe in the tradition, believe in the history, and that's the belief in the church councils. They believe that they can change things. For example, change the Bible, or put the books they want in the Bible, or change the scriptures. Now let's talk about Protestants. Protestants believe that the sole rule of faith and practice should be the Holy Scriptures. Now, we see the difference. Sole authority is the Bible, inspired by God. But the Catholics believe that along the Bible, the tradition, the council, that's also the Pope, the Virgin Mary, the saints. But the Protestants believe that the sole rule of faith and practice should be the Holy Scriptures, and therefore they do not, let me repeat that, they do not accept certain Catholics' practices that are primarily justified by appealing to tradition. The Protestants do not accept the authority of the Pope. Let me repeat again. Protestants do not accept the authority of the Pope. They do not accept the practice of praying to the Virgin Mary and the saints who are dead, long dead, and waiting for the resurrection. Do not accept the rituals practice Roman Catholicism. We don't. Protestants do not. They do not believe in the saints like Peter, Paul, Saint Mary and Saint Joseph or Saint Pope the second, John Paul the second. They don't. They believe the sole authority is the Bible, the whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, the 66 books. We're going to talk about it next week, about the Holy Scripture. We're going to discuss the Holy Scripture next week. They will not believe in the saints, in the Virgin Mary. The Protestant believe in this whole Scripture, Genesis to Revelation. 66 books, 39 in the Old Testament and 27 in the New Testament. So that's the belief of the Protestant, which gonna take us to what we call the Reformation. The Reformation date between 1500 to 1650. There was a Roman Catholic monk by the name of Martin Luther. Listen, I got a beautiful, wonderful book here. If you want to check it out. Martin Luther was a monk. I believe in the Justine. He was German, I believe, Martin Luther. So I in my writings here, I put that name, Martin Luther. I said we discover because it was written in the Bible. It was not Martin Luther just came up to the biblical, come up with that. Is just he discovered it. It is a biblical doctrine, justification by faith and faith alone. The Bible, the word alone is not in it, but Martin Luther, when he wrote the thesis, he put faith by faith alone. But justification by faith was Paul in the book of Romans. Again, I repeat it again. Justification by faith alone set out by the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans. Luther argued, then what is the need for pilgrimage, penance, indulgence, purgatory, and the last rites? He was excommunicated like anybody that tried to speak the church. If you try to say, talk to the church or preach things that are against the doctrines, meaning that if you're a pastor, for some reason there are practices in your church that you started speaking of, you need or against, they're going to excommunicate it. Excommunication is happening in all the churches, all religion on this planet. It's not only the Roman Catholics. Church is every church. If you do not comply to the brethren, so meaning that to the pharaohs that lead in the church, if you do not comply, is what they say you say. Okay? So if you not, they are going to excommunication is in a different form. Either they fire you because you are a worker, you're not doing ministry. If you were doing the ministry, no one would have any power to fire you. If Jesus was your boss, no one would be able to fire you. But remember, any denomination that you're working, if you're not complying to the teaching of the church or what the church told you to say, or you've been told, then they're going to excommunicate you. Excommunication comes to different forms, just firing, dismiss, or laid off. You're not going to have a job because you're doing job. You are working for the pharaohs. You are working for you got a boss. So if you don't comply. So that's what happened. They excommunicated Martin Luther. He formed the Lutheran Church in Germany. Other theologians followed, such as John Calvin. You got the Calvinistic churches emerge as Reformed churches. Remember, churches arising out of Protestant of a protest. Again, these churches arise out of protest to reform the Catholicism. They were Protestant churches. Again, Martin Luther, Calvin's. Out the Reformation came the Anabaptists. Later, that the Catholic Church persecuted these people and eradicated all of them, killed all of them. It was a genocide. You have the Lutherans still exist. You got the Calvinistic churches are there. But again, the difference between Catholicism and Protestantism, There's Catholics believe in the saints. They worship the Pope. They worship Mary. They accept the Pope is the sole power. He elected bishop by himself. He elected the cardinals. He chosen them. The Pope also has power over the church. Man, some of the Protestant churches, they have what we call either an executive committee, or they have a group of people that also elected pastors to be in certain churches. We will talk about that later. I would talk about the church government, how many denominations govern themselves. We would go over that. But the difference is the Protestant come out of the Catholic Church. Many Protestant churches you see out there, Baptist, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventist, Methodist, we all come out of the Catholic Church. We protest against the teaching of the Pope of the Catholic Church, or Catholicism, where we have the pilgrimage, penance, pray for the dead. And then, in other words, salvation is something that you have to work hard to earn, where the Bible clearly said salvation is by faith and by faith alone, you know? So that is the difference between Catholics and Protestant. And I remember that we protest against some teachings in the church. For example, we protest the idea that you take a baby and then you just pour water on the baby and you say the baby is baptized. You cannot baptize an infant. He or she doesn't know anything. Baptism is by immersion. And I would come to the Greek, and then when I talk about the baptism, I would tell you more. But baptism is by you immerse the person in the water. And it's not just pour out a little water on a baby, on an infant, and that infant cannot make decision for him or herself. Then we protest against all of those. Unfortunately, some of the people out there call themselves Protestant. We protest against the teaching of the Catholic Church, but we're still practicing some of the Catholic Church. We're still practicing the teachings. We still teach things that the Catholic Church teach. We will also come with this Sunday. For example, if you are a Protestant, you protest against the Catholic Church. The first day of the week cannot be your day of worship. Let me repeat again. If you're coming out of the Catholic Church, you protest against the teaching, some of the false teaching in the Catholic Church, what we call the pseudos, then you are practicing Sunday worship, then you are not a Protestant. Protestant, you means that we protest against this false teaching. That's the difference between Catholicism and Protestantism. That we, again, protest against some of the false teaching that the Catholic Church used to teach, period. And I don't know if I answer your questions. We will come with more questions every Sabbath before the Bible study. I would go over some of your questions that you sent me over the weekend. Now, we don't want to hurt anybody. It's simple, the difference between the Catholic Church and the Protestant. They don't have a pope. They don't have somebody that tell them what to do, or someone that said he replaced Jesus Christ. That he is God himself. God can tell him to change the Sabbath, which is the 7th to the 1st, and they decided in a council to change it. Protestant, we don't have that. So again, thank you so much for opening up your doors and your arm, and again, let me into your home to answer your questions. Have a holy and wonderful Sabbath. Bye-bye.